Hello, my name is Emilia Quinaluiza and I am going to present to you what happened to our life in the pandemic and in the national strike. How has education and life changed during the pandemic? Today, whole world was surprised by COVID-19 in 2020. However, the vast majority of people thought that it was an uniform league and that it would disappear soon, but little by little the situation worsened. Many people died, and those who were sick, some aftermath are being faced by some. Until today, we face the situation, but it is no longer as serious as it was at the beginning. In these 2 years, many things have changed. March 12, 2022 was when the government announced the suspension of face-to-face classes. Everything was too sudden. The little technological knowledge of people made it difficult to continue with an adequate level of education. Many people were unable to access technology or the internet and their education stopped. In my case, I was awake when suddenly everyone was talking about virtual classes. They made us enter our classrooms and showed us a video on how to use Moodle. They gave us a count in Office 370 and basically I finished my studies at home and where if I wanted to learn something, I had to review the resources that were uploaded to the page because I did not have classes with my teacher again. And a lot of things got complicated when there was only one computer and two brothers who had homeworks to deliver. People had to learn about the new reality we were living in. A whole country was confined, many people lost their jobs and money was no longer enough to survive, and as the time of confinement continued, things became more complicated. People to really get to know each other and learn to live together were helped in a way by this pandemic, either because parents had work and were late so they didn't spend as much time with their family or children. At that time, they had to spend time with their children or family. And that's when you could say we really got to know each other. A lot of things happened, but at least we had each other. I didn't really feel much of a difference because even though I didn't spend a large day with them, I saw them frequently as well as my grandparents. We always got along well, and the time of the confinement it wasn't much different. We talked and tried not to watch the news so as not to worry too much. There were no money problems until the last weeks before they allowed to leave the confinement, so I could say that it was not a bad time for me, but for many others it was not the same. Some lost loved ones and went through worrying moments. It can be said that this virus is under control, but we must continue to be careful. How has education and life changed during the national strike? Ecuador's most important indigenous peoples organizations have been called for a strike in the country demanding that the government of Presidente Guillermo Lasso lower and freeze fuel prices, establish price controls, and improve health and education coverage. Protests following the call for a strike by the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities (CONAIE) have gained strength after their arrest and conditional release of its main leader Leonidas Issa. The indigenous population, the majority of which lives in the highlands of the Indian region, is a sector traditionally relegated and little attended by the governments in power, which has pushed them to carry out protests at different times and which have managed to put the authorities in check. The largest previous protests in Ecuador occurred at the end of 2019, and as in the present one, the figure of Isa has been present. After having been able to return to on-site classes, we have had to return to virtual classes a few weeks before the end of the school year. Approximately 15 days of protests have passed, and as usual, there has been too much damage to the capital. However, in many parts of the highlands of the country, there are food shortages as the protesters have closed the roads and the trucks that can bring the products are too difficult. The few products that there are being sold at too high prices. The same happens with domestic gas. It is almost impossible to get a tank of gas. These protests have stopped the work of many people who have recently begun to recover after the losses caused by the pandemic. After a week where the violence was strong since Saturday, it was said that the speech was going to end, but nothing is certain, and although things have apparently calmed down, it is not official that the state speech is over. Classes have resumed in some provinces since Monday, June 27. In conclusion, the strike come at the bad time, as the country's economy was beginning to recover. However, at this moment there are too many losses for both the countries and the people.